Well, Tom Smith wants to know, Eric, what are your thoughts on Jim Cornette's latest stunt? So he, of course, is referring to racist comments that Jim made on NWA commentary and thus quitting the promotion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware of it. I didn't hear the comments. I read the comments. I picked it up on social media today. What happened. Obviously, it's unfortunate all the way around. It's unfortunate for Jim, and I know Jim and I probably don't see eye to eye in a lot of respects, but in so many respects, I find Jim to be a very entertaining and a compelling person to listen to, but he takes it too far. This isn't 1960. This isn't 1970. This isn't even the 1980s or the early 1990s. Times have changed, and we all have to change with it. Everything about our lives have changed, particularly in the media. And Jim is a guy that is just not reluctant to adapt, or isn't reluctant, I should say, to adapt. And it's really unfortunate because he's a talented guy, he's an entertaining guy, and he's a very knowledgeable guy. But if you're not willing to grow and to evolve and to understand the implications of some of the things that you do and say and how it affects other people adversely, then you're going to get put out to pasture. And I hope that doesn't happen with Jim, but apparently that's kind of what it appears to be. I don't know where he goes from here.
I know he makes close to six figures selling his merch to the people who support him. So I know he's doing okay, but this is a bit of a blow to him and his notoriety within that endeavor.
It's hard for me to imagine that he's making six figures selling his merch. Maybe he is, and if he is, good for him. I know, the kind of success that my podcast has and the penetration that it has, and as well as guys like Bruce Pritchard and other people, and that's six figures is a big number. So if he's doing it, good for him. But he's making his world smaller because there's a certain point where you become too volatile to do business with, and the more bridges that you burn in social media and in a world of entertainment. I mean, like I said earlier, where does he go from here? Who's going to hire him? At this point, probably nobody. And if he's making, enough money off of his podcast and he is making a big chunk of change off his merch, as you pointed out, then good for him. I don't dislike Jim. Like I said, there's a lot of things I respect about Jim. I just think there's a lot of things that are self-destructive.
Sitting in traffic or Cornette riding with Vince McMahon, but you've shared your fair share of stories of riding with Vince. Did Cornette ever have to ride with Vince, and what would that be like?
Oh, Lord. What happened? We started, I think, in Cleveland, or we took a flight to Cleveland, catching a flight, and in the middle of the flight, we're all sitting in first class. I'm sitting next to Vince. Cornette and Jim Ross were there. Lisa Wolf was on the flight. I forget whoever the hell else was on the flight. But I'm sitting on the window. Vince is in the aisle. And we hit weather. Something happens that we are not allowed to land where we were going. The weather's too bad. We can't get there. So they circle. They decide to reroute us to Albany. And they're circling Albany. Well, Vince has decided to take a power nap. So he's out. He doesn't know any of this shit's going on. He wakes up, and he's hungry. Now, because the flight was originally only scheduled to be like an hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever it was, all they had was a little snack which consisted of a muffin and a banana. That was the snack food in first class. So Vince wakes up, he hits the flight attendant call button, and flight attendant comes back and says, "You have any food?" And she just comes and hands him this basket of a banana and a muffin. Like, "This is it?" "Well, yes, sir." And he looks at his watch. goddamn, what's going on? And he rings the flight attendant, and she just blows right by. She doesn't stop. So he's looking around, rings the flight attendant button again. She comes back, yes, sir. This is what are we doing here? So we were supposed to land like 30, 45 minutes ago. What's going on? And she just walks away, doesn't answer. I'm sitting right next to him. I witnessed the whole damn thing. And he's looking at me going, what the hell's going on? I said, I don't know. They said they had something going on in the weather and that we were circling Albany. Why the fuck are we circling Albany? I don't know. So he rings the flight attendant button again. And he says, what's going on? She just ignores us, doesn't answer. So he gets up and goes up and asks to speak to the captain. I'd like to know what the hell's going on. Well, man, it fucking turns into this whole big ordeal. The captain comes back. Yes, sir. He says, yeah, could you tell me what's going on here? I've tried to ask this young lady a couple of times. She has no answer for me. And the guy explains, hey, we got weather. We're circling right now. When we get clearance to land, we're going to land in Albany, but we can't go. I forget what our destination was. So when we'll land, be good. And that's it. I mean, that was the extent of the communication. Well, man, they call the fucking feds on us, on an unruly passenger. Now, if it had been United, they'd beaten the fuck out of him and drug him off the plane and probably thrown him off the fucking flight. But then again, it was a different time, different place. But when we land, man, the federal marshals are all standing there, and Vince gets off and gets on his phone, and we're trying to find a car company so that we can drive to the next place. And the feds are all surrounding him, and they question us about all this bullshit about, sir, you threatened a flight attendant, you threatened the captain. And I'm listening to this going, man, he didn't threaten anybody. He asked a question. Why are we circling? Why haven't we landed yet? That's it. He was asleep when the announcement was made. And they fucking make a report, write all this bullshit up. So now we're late getting where we got to go. Weather's bad, and Vince is going to drive. And it's Vince, me, Cornette, and Jim Ross. And Vince is in a hurry. And as I told the story about him going about 140 miles an hour in the pouring rain, that's exactly what he's doing here. And I remember Jim Ross made the comment afterwards, that last time I'm riding with you, old man, goddamn, I got kids, and I'd like to see them. I'd like to see them again. I can't travel like this. And Cornette said, goddamn motherfucker, I'll never fucking travel with you again. I'll fucking die before I fucking get in a car with you behind the wheel ever again. And that was the last time that Cornette ever fucking rode with Vince driving. He was absolutely scared. If he thought that flying in a goddamn death tube was bad, being in a car with Vince McMahon behind the wheel in weather late somewhere is even worse.
Well, Jim was he's a pretty brave driver himself, though. Didn't you tell me there were a few times where you guys would have your plane delayed because of weather, and Jim would beat you to the town driving?
That bastard one time, as he stated, he goes, goddamn, I had to walk the fucking gangplank onto the goddamn death tube, motherfucker. He gets on the plane, and it's one of those small jets with one seat on one side on the left side and two on the other.
Yeah.
And he walks on. We're already on the plane. And Corny walks on, looks, goes back, tries to sit down, but can't sit down. And he's cussing the whole way and goes, God damn, I'm not going to die on this fucking death tube. I'm out of here. And bolts, gets off the plane, and we're all sitting on the plane waiting for the son of a bitch to come back. He don't come back. And it's another situation where the weather was bad and so on and so forth. And we got delayed. We get off. And again, Jimmy didn't have a cell phone. We didn't have cell phones then. Jimmy's got a cell phone now. You still can't reach on his cell phone. He's the only guy I know that actually answers his phone at home. But Cornette gets off the plane, rents a car, and drove 200 and some odd miles to the town and beat us there. He gets in at 1 o'clock in the morning. We don't get in until 4:30 in the morning.
Well,
and he gets there. He goes in and checks in. Bruce Pritchard, because Mr. Pritchard hadn't checked in yet. Well, how about Jim Ross? Mr. Ross hasn't checked in yet. Vince McMahon, they're not here yet, sir. Beat us by 3.5 hours, and that motherfucker drove 200 miles, and we flew.
I do not, and I'm a fan of Jim's. I do not do a Jim Cornette impression. Sorry.
The great John Dean has a famous Jim Cornette quote he wants to mention here. When Jim Cornette cut his famous Ronnie Garvin's face went up like the Challenger promo, what was your reaction in the back?
What was he referring to?
He's probably talking about his title run and how that title run went up like the Challenger.
So he's saying it was a failure.
I'm pretty sure that's the impression that he's trying to give.
Did he say that on air?
Yes, on TBS.
Was Ronnie Garvin in the state when he said it?
I don't know, but we'll have to ask him about it. Ronnie Garvin, too, believe it or not, is going to be at StarCast. I can't believe that's a real thing.
Now, that's a guy that beat the piss out of me on more than one occasion and stretched me just using just his feet.
Really?
Really. I wouldn't say that if it wasn't true. Ronnie Garvin was a nasty, nasty prick in the ring. Loved working with him because he made the audience believe. He damn sure made his opponents believe. He would beat the crap out of you, stretch you and sugar you and all those old timer things. But at the end of the day, at the end of the 20 minutes, you had a good match. You had a good fight. Now, if you didn't fight him back, he would eat you up. But that's on you. That ain't on him. Had a lot of nice matches with Ronnie, but brother, he double tough. I imagine he still is double tough.
Alex Prentice wants to know, how much fun did you have working for Jim Cornette and Smoky Mountain Wrestling? Your reveal under the blanket as Ricky and Robert's mystery partner was old school at its best.
Oh, I loved it. Had the time of my life. It was when I was taking a break away from WCW. And Cornette, obviously his promo set it up perfectly. And I think it's one of those times that nobody knew, and the last person on earth they expected to be under there with all the fights and all the wars and all the angles we had done with the Rock and Roll Express. I'm the last guy they thought would be under that sheet. And we had a blast. It was awesome.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.